Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome back. I hope you're doing good. Today's video, as you can tell from the title, is going to be talking through my favourite Wands cards. So this is a response to Livy at Crescent Dreams Tarot, and is a new tag, #WonderfulOnes. They did this as a response to the majors and court cards versions of this idea video, which I have seen kicking about but I've not done myself. I will do the majors at some point probably, but 22 is a lot of cards and it feels quite overwhelming, so I haven't done it yet, and I feel like I will never know the court cards well enough to pick favourites, but hey, maybe that's an idea to get to know them. Maybe that could be really interesting, actually. I could sit down with my books and my decks and deep dive into different court cards that way. But yeah, that's not today's video. So the one suit, the fire suit, is a suit that I feel pretty ideologically comfortable with. The symbolism of it, the meaning of the fire suit, I feel pretty comfy with. But fire energy in general is not where I'm at home. So I'm comfortable interpreting the Wands cards, but I don't feel like I live in the Wands cards. Does that make sense? I think I mentioned before, I have not got a single fire sign placement in my birth chart, so I just feel like fire energy is just a little bit, I don't know, not my place. So yes, but despite that, I find they're still pretty relatively easy to read. And I really wanted to do this. This just seemed really interesting and fun and gave me an excuse to look through all my decks for favourites. So I'm going to get straight into it. The Ace of Wands. I looked through my decks. I was not very inspired by a lot of the aces. To be honest, I think there's only so much you can do with the imagery that we're familiar with the aces. But this one I liked very much. This is from the Lubanko Tarot, and I just love the energy that's in this ace. The way the hand is reaching up from the ground rather than just floating in the air. It feels a lot more powerful, I guess. I love how the wand is a whole tree, and how there's this lightning in the background. One of the other cards that I've picked out for later in the Wands, has also got lightning, and I think it's a really underutilized symbol in tarot when we're looking at Wands, because of course they are the fire element. I think lightning represents that potentially overwhelming energy and passion in the suit really well, and of course it's the ace that is that lightning strike of inspiration. So this is my favourite ace. I doubt we're going to be able to fit all these in, but we'll see how it goes. So the Two of Wands is one of the cards that is very, out of the whole tarot, not just the Wands. The Two of Wands is very dominion and rulership heavy. So the Two of Wands is literally, in the Thoth Tarot, it's the Lord of Dominion. And that kind of rulership, dominion theme is definitely a theme within the tarot as a whole. There's a lot of hierarchy, and I think we see those positions implicitly defining what power and strength look like. Does that make sense? And I don't love that, and I won't go on a massive tangent right now, but all that to say, the Two of Wands cards that I like, although I do like the Two of Wands cards, the ones that I really love, my favourites that are in this video, they tend to veer away a little bit from Pamela Colman Smith's drawing of this man looking out and surveying the land and what he's going to do with it, because that's not my favourite vibe. But anyway, this is from the Dream Vision Tarot. And what I like about this Two of Wands is the scale of it. So our figure is this tiny, tiny figure looking out and up to this vastness of what in this card is space. So typically you've got the figure up high and kind of looking out and assessing their domain. And I like how this figure is so much smaller. I think it also gets away from this idea of ownership. And in this card, it feels like you are just a person in this big wide universe. And also you're very much within it. You're not kind of apart from it and above it. So that one I like very much. And then also I have another Two of Wands. This is from the Mary L Tarot. And I remember reading the guidebook for this one, and it really stuck with me, saying, 2 trees don't make a forest, but they make a door. And so this is more of like a calling or an invitation, showing that Two of Wands opportunity as like the very beginning of a journey into this like dark, unknown forest. So yeah, those are my Two of Wands. As for the Three of Wands, this is from the Eldritch Overload Tarot. And I like this one because it shows somebody who has literally stepped out of their comfort zone and is like physically planting and growing new things. And if you kind of have the lore and the backstory of the world this tarot is from, she is here, she's on the horizon from the perspective of the people who are like in the city, and I like that kind of flipped perspective. In the Two of Wands, we see a figure who is in the city, who is looking out over this like wasteland horizon, and I really like how those two cards talk to each other. The whole deck does that, to be honest, because this is very heavily themed world building. But that's slightly beside the point, and I love this three. It's also just extremely beautiful, which helps. So the Four of Wands, this is from the Guardian of the Night Tarot, and this card is so gorgeous. So I'm going to be honest, it's the magpies that do it for me with this card. Check the username. Of course it is. I love the magpies. But yeah, let's not pretend to be surprised. So I've said it before in probably more than one video because I do tend to repeat myself. But I don't get a whole lot of meaning from animal energy in decks. So like according to the guidebook, these magpies represent communication, creativity, community, fun, and playfulness. I see a lot of magpies when I'm out and about walking the dog, and I will say they are really playful and they're really funny to watch. And the Four of Wands is like joy and celebration, but it's not like happy ever after. And so I think the like playful aspect of this card represents that really well. So the five, I've got 2 cards again, and this is from the Tarot de, I've heard someone say Carlotydes, so I'm not sure if that's strictly correct, but anyway, look at this, how this is just so much fun. So I tend to view the Five of Wands as like non-serious conflict, and this is exactly what I think this card portrays. So I am, okay, I don't want to say I'm someone who argues for fun, because argues has such like a negative connotation, but I do like to have a non-serious disagreement, or like a, I guess more like academic type debate thing. Yeah, so that's the kind of energy that the Five of Wands in general has for me. It's like, okay, we're like arguing, but nobody's actually getting hurt, we're kind of enjoying it. And this with the horses who have strapped the wands to themselves as like unicorn horns and are like, I don't know, they're jousting, they're playing, it's very non-serious. And I've just never seen a Five of Wands like this. I really love it. And then my other Five of Wands, this is from the Art of Adventure Tarot, and I really like this for showing the competition aspect of this card. So they're all trying to catch this butterfly in the centre, and it seems like a kind of scuffle, but you assume it's not actually that serious. I also really like the way that their limbs are drawn as like this big chaotic tangle, like it is quite a chaotic card to look at. Your eye gets kind of lost moving around the card. So they're all butting heads, they're all getting in each other's way, which is definitely something else I get from the Five of Wands in general. Like you can't have 5 top priorities, and if you try to, you're just going to end up frustrated, you're going to end up with a mess and like a big chaotic tangle. And I just feel like this captures that so well. So the Six of Wands is a little bit like the 2 for me. That's just like a bit of a sticking point of a card. I think we all have cards like that, and this is one of those. And like the Six of Wands looks like it's all good vibes, you're celebrating your achievements, all that jazz, but I don't know, there's something about the sixes across all the suits that always feels a little bit uneven to me. And I find it hard to get on board with this like public celebration of accomplishment that is in this 6. And maybe that says more about me than the tarot, but let's not go there. This is the Fyodor Pavlov tarot. And I really like this 6 of Wands because it doesn't have other people depicted. It's just our central figure who we assume is returning triumphant from whatever it is they've been off doing. And like it doesn't have that public admiration, like celebration aspect to the 6 that I am weirdly uncomfortable with, and I'm realizing is maybe a me issue, but let's move swiftly on. The other 6 of Wands that I really like is from the Terra Volatile. And the reason I like this one is, like, again, it's a little bit different to the Rider-Waite-Smith 6 of Wands and most 6 of Wands that are inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith. So you can see our main figure here is carrying the head of a Gorgon, being celebrated for this achievement. But also there's these skeletons at the bottom of the card that are kind of in shadow and not really being paid attention to. And like for me, this is that reminder that you don't win every battle, or even just that in every battle, like there's somebody who loses. So it's kind of like, who are you walking all over, or like what are you forgetting in this moment of victory and celebration? I don't know, that's a little bit moody and like pessimistic and cynical. But yeah, like I said, I've got a weird sticking point with this card. So I quite like having that cynical aspect in it. I think basically that's probably like what most people would take as a reversed meaning of this card. I don't read reversals like physically, like I don't read upright verse reversal meanings. I read the whole card, as it were. And it's nice to have that like reverse meaning or like shadow aspect really clearly depicted. But that again is a little bit of a tangent. So the 7, this is a much less serious take on a card. This is from the Gromolkin's Curious Cats Tarot. This is a new deck to me, but I'm kind of in love with it. And for this, like especially if you see the cat's expression in this card, this really has that meaning of like, are you defending your position or are you the one like making trouble? Because we've got these bees and yeah, the cat's kind of a little bit shocked and confused, and it's like, well, who is pissing who off? I don't know, I feel like if you know cats, you know they are just as likely to make trouble as anything else, and then they have to kind of defend themselves, but it's their own fault that this has happened in the first place, like kind of a thing. And yeah, I just love the like, what have I gotten myself into kind of expression on this cat's little face. It's definitely a bit of a lighter take on the 7 of Wands, but I want that sometimes, to be honest. And yeah, I think this is my favourite 7 of Wands. Again, the 7 of Wands looks kind of boring in most decks, so this is just a nice one to have. Speaking of boring, the 8 of Wands, as Livy said in their video, the 8s are really boring in terms of art. But I do like this. This is from the Terra Volatile again, partly because it's just a lot cooler to look at than your average 8 of Wands. But instead of like flying through the air, these ones are either, I suppose, reaching up or reaching down. You can interpret it whichever way. From this like big old eye in the sky, which I guess you could interpret as like God and heaven or some kind of big cosmic energy. But I like that because a big part of what the Wandsuit represents is spirituality. So this kind of has that message of like inspiration or some kind of message coming from something bigger. And then I also really like the 8 from the Way Home Tarot. This is the other one with lightning in it. So same kind of thing, 8 wands lit with that like branching rapid fire spark of lightning. I really do wish we saw lightning to represent fire in more decks. But I think it works really well for the 8 of Wands. It's that kind of fast moving inspiration, like catch it before it fades. And yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting to breathe. I don't know if you can hear it. I kind of hope not. Okay, so the 9 of Wands. I feel like I don't actually have a lot to say about the 9 of Wands, even though I've got 2 cards, but that's probably for the best. So this, once again, is the Terra Volatile, and I have it for the 10 as well. Look, it's my favourite deck. Oh, I said that a bit quick. Anyway, this is the Terra Volatile. This is the 9 of Wands. And yeah, the Nine of Wands is not a particularly like fun card, but I really like the kind of sense of guardedness in this particular one. Like our figure is, and these like lines that have been drawn on top of the imagery, I take as them like looking around, and then you see a dog, you think guard dog. Like there is that sense of like watchfulness and like can't relax. Like it's that last stand, defense and stamina about the Nine of Wands. I think this one just like portrays really well, at least a lot better than a lot of decks where you've just someone looking a little bit beaten up and annoyed. And then this is the Lubanko Tarot, Nine of Wands. And this is definitely not a traditional portrayal, but what I really like about this is it's that like darkest part of the forest. It seems like there's no way to like work out or see your way through, but like equally that means there's no turning back, or like it would be just as pointless to turn back as it would be to blindly find your way through, because that's just the situation you're in. Yeah. And finally, the tens. So this is, once again, this is the Way Home Tarot. This is literally like burnout. Too much fire, not fed with enough oxygen. And I like that this does speak directly to the effects of burnout. So like once it hits, it's hard to care. Even if you do get what you want, you do manage to kind of get the burden over the finish line to set it down, but you're too tired and depleted and burnt out to be able to celebrate. And then finally, we finished with the Terra Volatile once again. I am pretty sure I have spoken about this exact card in a previous video because I really like the way, I don't know if it's showing up, that you've got the numbers to 10 with this 10 of Wands. This deck speaks my personal tarot language, so it was actually a challenge not to include it for every card in this video. But yeah, the fact that they've been numbered, like counted out, really translates to me as that kind of awareness that you have when you're carrying a heavy burden, and the way that you're aware of all of the different parts, and you can tell when anything like shifts, like metaphorically or physically. If you're carrying something heavy and something like changes even slightly, you really feel it when it's that heavy a burden. And then the 10th wand is the one that the figure is actually using to help support themselves, and it reminds me of a description I read once. I forget which like book or guidebook that it was, but it was about making sure that you're not carrying this burden unnecessarily or like just for the sake of it. Like just because you started doesn't mean that you have to see it through necessarily. And I feel like that 10th wand here is like a little reminder of that in this card. Like maybe it's not something that you can just drop and you do want to see it through, but you can probably find a way to make it like a little bit easier to handle. So that is my 10 of Wands. That is all of my cards that I picked out for this video. That's it, we're done. I'm actually so glad that I did this video. Thank you so much to Livy for the idea and for making it into a tag. Like I said, this process, going through all my decks and really thinking about the wands, was really cool to do. I think it was really valuable. I'm definitely going to do this with the other suits, with the majors, the court cards. I think it is like really helpful to like get to grips with things you see. I've spoken before about how I love having lots of decks because I love having lots of perspectives, and kind of directly comparing perspectives is definitely a really good way to get to know the cards. So yes, I've filmed a couple of videos now. I kind of am losing the ability to be coherent, so we're going to leave it there. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.